I'm swimming in a sea of politics when I get onto Twitter. Everyone in their written discourse or their words in their videos subtly or not so subtly profess their allegiance to one political party or another. These candles are making me nervous. I think you get the picture. Spooky. Maybe with the heightened sensitivity that we have all been experiencing for the past 2 years here on planet Earth, social media has become a sense of community for us. In our isolation, we want to belong to something bigger, something that gives our life and our sacrifices meaning. Imagine if one day we were told that 2 years of locking ourselves away actually had no significant effect. Half the population would not even accept it. A useless sacrifice of liberty doesn't sit well. The society, how this term has changed over time. What is it? What is our relation to it? Is it natural? In today's climate, it would seem like having some sort of affiliation with a political party is an essential marker to one's identity. Some people and content creators avoid the subject of politics altogether, and it actually serves as some sort of respite from the day-to-day barrage of attacks. But there will come a moment when even these people will eventually be put in a corner by their followers where they would have to make a black or white stance. And in that moment, they will probably lose half of their followers. How are we even supposed to think of politics? It would seem to me that willful ignorance of the subject is not the right approach unless you're going to be one of those rare individuals who goes off into the desert, into a cave, and God and his angels are your providers of food and water. Any Catholic out there will understand my obsession with the Desert Fathers when I was in the seminary. These men and women who went off and contemplated God all day and lived alone. And when they needed it, God or his angels would just randomly pop in with some bread. Sounds good. And it's interesting because that way of life, whether it was real or not, is more in line with the idea of pure human nature given to us by Rousseau and his predecessors, that man is completely sufficient on his own. And although according to the story, the Desert Fathers received their nourishment from God through miracles, that conception of human nature from Rousseau is equally as supernatural considering the state of infants and their necessity of their mother's breast. And what about the other extreme? Should we make politics and a particular cause our sole reason for existence? Is there anything wrong with that? Well, let's look at why humans choose anything. Oh man, this is hurting my neck. My hair. Ultimately, everything that humans do is for their happiness. So, is a political life something that is conducive to that happiness? Well, looking at social media, it would seem that many people have chosen that route. And because we are all glued to our screens, it affects us all. It's an easy way to gain support. And I'm sure many people promote ideas that they know will give them followers. Because who doesn't want a friend, even if they don't really know who we are? Anyway, here at my funeral, I'm reflecting on my life and the lives of the people that I've come into contact with and that I see online. And I wonder, was it all worth it? Were all those hours spent angrily tweeting at someone who was offending me, or more importantly, somebody else in the minority? Was all of that worth it in the end? Did my obsession actually in the end make me feel empty? What is the role of politics in our life? bottoms up. I came across an article entitled "Reading Too Much Political News is Bad for Your Well-Being" in The Atlantic. The author begins with a quote from Buddha: "Attachment is the root of human suffering." Anyway, he says that we should all reflect, each one of us, to see if we're attached to our own political views. Okay, so just a little context. This is right before the 2020 elections, and I'm sure that he doesn't want people of his own party to change their views, but the others. He relates the findings of a 2017 Dutch study that looks at the effects of bad news, which is, political, and our well-being. I'm guessing that listening to bad news all the time is not going to have a positive effect on us. Just a guess. The study finds that with each new bad piece of news that one is exposed to, one's well-being is reduced by 6.1%. Surprisingly, the author states, "I believe that today's partisan climate, media polarization, and constant political debates are interfering directly with the fuel of happiness, which is love." Whatever the cause of happiness is, that's up for debate, but the rest of what he says is intriguing. Is it true? Are we less happy because we are overly saturated with politics? In 2015, the University of Arkansas Grantham wrote an article, "3 Reasons You Should Care About Politics and Government." Number 1, government and politics impacts nearly every aspect of our life. Decisions from the man affect many aspects of our lives. That's something we cannot deny, and it's our responsibility. We must understand who makes those decisions and what the process is. Seems reasonable. Number 2, having knowledge of politics makes you an informed voter. According to a PBS article, 58% of voters at that time in 2017 voted, and then that rose to 66% in 2020, according to Pew. The article says that voters should know the facts and do some independent research so that they have peace of mind before casting the ballot. Okay. And number 3, politics is entertaining. And here the author gives an anecdote from his past where he had a candidate that he loved and he followed with the debates and their trail up to their election and all of the drama. Okay, although the entertaining aspect of politics is definitely up for debate, I find it hilarious sometimes. The hypocrisy. I think the first 2 reasons have some merit. For some reason, we can't just be wild men and go off into a cabin and hunt our own food and live in this autonomy, which is actually like a matrix autonomy because the government still is in control of us. The man is there. Society is there. We live with other people, but it does seem overwhelming at times if we don't know how to approach it. This thing is so old that the pieces are falling off of it. For me, it seems quite evident that we have to have some knowledge of politics and the world around us, and not focus on our own personal, private good. Especially nowadays, we benefit so much from the society around us. Take, for instance, the computer that I'm using. the phone that I am recording this on right now. I didn't have to create that, nor the electricity that it uses. In fact, all of the knowledge that I have was passed down to me from other people. Think about that. Oh, this is disgusting. Imagine a society where people live in the same geographical location but have no interpersonal relations with each other. Everyone is an individual and on their own. Each one supplies for their own necessities. I mean, because school or apprenticeships would mean that you're associating with your fellow man. Their food, they grow, they harvest, they eat alone. Sickness, they cure or attempt to. I think it'd be kind of impossible to save yourself from a heart attack or very serious cancer. It's like everyone begins life at zero, the same, and they have to acquire the necessary knowledge in order to survive. Hopefully, or they don't survive. They have to defend their own plot of land, and of course they don't have recourse to a higher authority if there is a crime committed. And of course another thing that totally destroys this conception of humans and the perfect state is the fact that infants cannot survive an hour on their own. Do you get it? This type of organization just doesn't look good. We are social beings. Of course, we can create an imaginary world and fantastical conception of what human nature is in its perfect form, like Rousseau and his predecessors, where each person is complete and whole on their own and don't need to associate themselves with others. But that's impossible. Throw an infant into the woods and see how long it survives. Am I a genius? Is this the new TV reality show? Sounds like a before the fall of Rome type of entertainment. Where does man's connection with others come from? Let's take a look back at old school philosophy that I learned in school and honestly still makes sense. I'm done with this. Goodbye. I'll save that for a special occasion. Because that's what people do, right? Gosh, this is so cringy. Aristotle claimed that man is, by nature, a political animal. And FYI, man means human. Let's not get political about the normal usage of English. What he means is that humans, in order to fully realize their nature as rational beings, must have associations with others, or he's worse than other animals. And that's actually a very interesting idea because all animals act according to what they are. But human beings are the only known being that is able to choose to conform to that nature or not. In this conception of Aristotle, if someone is not being social and not associating with other people, going against his nature, something like an amoeba doing its thing is actually better than that human. What a great insult. In another one of his writings, Aristotle actually talks about humans who are not using their rational capabilities in a productive way, that when you're trying to talk with them and they're not using logic, it's better, he says, to go and talk to a plant. No. I'm surprised that I haven't killed that plant yet. I don't know why I keep going back to Aristotle. It's something very comfortable for me. Maybe it's his foundation in logic. We studied him and other philosophers in the seminary. I see him as just some pagan. Christianity wasn't there yet. It was before Christ. Just some guy going around asking questions, trying to figure things out, using his brain. And although there are some things that I don't agree with or I don't understand exactly what he was trying to say, I can't negate the fact that it makes sense. You can watch my video on happiness where I talk about Aristotle and his conception of what that is, because his political ideas are based upon that. But basically what it is man's ultimate goal in life is to be happy. He does this by reaching his full potential as a human and acquiring virtues. This actually means, according to ethics, that he is becoming a good a good person. Some virtues can be acquired alone, but other ones require at least another person. Whatever. Who cares about virtues? That sounds too religious. The modern world has some virtues too. Like, I think one of the principal ones is be nice. Just be nice. Just be nice as you basically destroy the reputation of someone else. But be nice about it when you cancel someone. It's like the modern day, bless your heart before you completely destroy the person by gossiping about them. Anyway, a good citizen, according to Aristotle, is separate from being a good person, because a good citizen depends on following and honoring the constitution of that particular state. If that constitution is good, then you can be a good citizen and a good person. But if that constitution is bad, then you can be a good citizen by following those, but at the same time a bad person. Do you get it? If the goodness of man depends on the acquisition and practice of virtues, then the goodness of a constitution and thus a state is that it allows man to do that, to acquire virtues and practice it. But no state is ever going to reach that utopic form. I mean, we're dealing with human beings and thus many defects and flaws and things that always need to be improved. So what's the purpose of all of this philosophical information? Are they just interesting tidbits that we can present at our next party to entertain our guests? You know, those things we used to do before the world went to shit 2 years ago that I hope are about to start happening again. It's about time. If we want to actually be good, objectively good people and strive towards our ultimate and fulfilling happiness, then a lot depends on the society that we live in. Wanting something like happiness means nothing if the state takes that away from us. It's important that we keep an eye on things that are going on around us in order to make sure that we're doing our part and the society around us is doing their part. But life is all about priorities. I know that what the government does, what happens in politics, affects my day-to-day life. But most of my attention and focus is not going to be on that. It's going to be on what is happening right here, right now, with me and the people that are directly around me. Not unless you're one of those political twitchers who spend all day playing video games and talking about politics. Just do you, I guess. And it doesn't matter if I'm living in a good government or a bad government. One of the dilemmas that many people face every day is how much they have to participate in politics when they themselves are not in politics. For some people, politics is like religion. In it, they find purpose for their days and meaning for their existence. There they find community and mutual support. And it's all exciting being a part of the movement, clinging to the pendulum that's swinging from being a victim and feeling the apparent oppression of opposition, and then to the other side of feeling the honor and glory of being the victor and crushing the enemies. It's like living in a reality TV show. Fun. Although the monotony of life is lessened, it's still not a sufficient life. When we're dealing with people and the government and society, we're dealing with a lack of perfection. It's like nothing is ever satisfied. The world is always changing and evolving, and there's always a new battle to fight for. It's a raging fire that is never satisfied. Power-hungry and morally inept people will always strive for political gain, and they will focus more on their own personal end than that of the people, even though that is the purpose of their office. And no matter how good intentioned the people are and how much they personally sacrifice for a particular cause, they will always just become cogs in the machine that easily consumes their energy and spits them out ready for the new person to fill their place. It drains the humanity out of people. When we look at the horrible situation around us, the answer is not just to say, well, that's not my problem. No, it's good to have a cause and to stand up for the good. And I think that it's part of what makes up a good person. But where's the balance? When we look at someone who, let's say, has a family, has to work and make money to support that family, that person doesn't have enough time to devote for causes, and especially not endless and pointless Twitter rants. And also a person, let's say a student, who's going to school and studying in order to train their mind to become a well-formed person and capable of reaching their ultimate goal and making good and beneficial decisions for not only themselves but the society. They too do not have time to devote for causes and protests. But if they do go out or devote their time for a cause, it's either taking themselves away from something that is objectively more important for them, or it's something that is special. It's a particular grave circumstance where they have to go out. It's not just something they have the luxury of doing all the time. In my mind, that list of priorities is what keeps someone sane and happy because they have a peace in their life. It's clear to me that politics shouldn't hold the primary place in someone's list of priorities. But it also has to hold some place, especially in those moments of necessity when the state threatens the citizens' ability to reach their personal ends. And it's important to take time, use your brain, and think about what you're really doing in your life if you're putting too much emphasis on politics or not enough. Think about it. The world we live in demands activism. It is not good enough to just not be something, but you have to be anti the other thing. Like, I can't just simply be not racist. I have to be anti-racist. I have to go out there and enact change. And this type of demand is unreasonable, and it causes the people to have so much pressure and extend themselves so much that they lose their inner peace and they forget the direction of their life in order to be happy. And I'm afraid that this is exactly the type of person that these movements want. Not an individual, but a number in a mass of people willing to sacrifice their lives and even their own happiness for the cause. And one final point. If everyone was looking for their own objective happiness and trying to objectively be good people, then they wouldn't be wasting their time trying to defend one clique or political party, but will be looking out for those things that actually make them happy. But not only them, because being a good person means that you are a social person. They will be looking out for the good of all. In other words, the common good. People would be focused on the formative part of education. How amazing of a parent would you be if you gave your child the means for them to be happy? What a thought. Our time is fleeting. Every minute that you are on Twitter is a minute of your life wasted away. Is it worth it? Is the entertainment value good enough? Death is right around the corner for all of us. Surprise, surprise. I bet you haven't thought about that in a while. I hate to be the bringer of bad news. But really, from that perspective, looking back on your life, how would you want to live it now?